Hello and welcome. So in this video, we're going to be finishing up our router. Now, I did make a few mistakes, so we're actually going to be fixing all of that because as it stands, our API router does not work whatsoever. So, originally the last video was supposed to be the last video on our router, but now we have a third video because I realized I messed up. If we go to our endpoints and we create a new file like users.php, and we actually tried to instantiate our router, so dollars or our API $sign router, or we'll say API is equal to, and then new router. So, and then if we actually tried to create a get function, something like this, and we're not going to pass anything through it right now. And let's just echo hello users. And in fact, let's not use users, let's use list, because the way we want this to work is something like so, where we'll have this slash users page, which, hold on, that's going to give us an error for now. But the slash users will be the base of the API, and then we'll do slash list, for instance, to list all the users. Well, we want, as you can, if we go here and we oh, that's the problem. Okay. Which this actually is going to give us an error because in our function here, we need to go actually instantiate this. So if you look here, and then we also need to set this equal to either an empty string like so or an empty array. I'm going to set it to an empty array. Did that wrong. Okay. Instantiate that equal to empty array. Okay. So now we get hello users, but the problem is this hello users appears on, well, everything. So hello users slash list, CF, whatever, it appears. We don't want that. We only want the hello users to appear when we get to slash list. So the first thing we're going to do is if we go down to this handle API endpoints, I actually added some code. So what I did is I created a variable called URL real, and I set that equal to the request URI, and I exploded on a slash. And so then I checked to see if the URL real was actually set and if it was empty in the first element, or if the first element was equal to an empty string, and I shift the array if that was true. And then if it's true again, I essentially I check to see if the URL real was still set, and if it is set, the first item in that array is equal to an empty string. If that is true, we're going to call this home API slash index. So if you don't do that line of code when you do this, you'll see this this 404 page not found. If we actually later on when we create a controller called home API and we create an index function, we'll actually be able to create our own API documentation now whenever people go to API whatever your API is, which in this case I'm using the API.cms.test for that. And when we get to the end of this tutorial series, I'll actually show you how to upload this onto like cPanel. But essentially we want to basically create a controller. Now, I'm recording this after I've completed a few more videos because that's when I realized I ran into that issue with the API. So there are some files here that you probably don't recognize. Don't worry about them. You don't need to have them until we actually create them in the next few videos, but I had to recreate this, or I had to go and create this video because there are some errors. So now that we have this callback, we want to make the URL dispatch based on whatever endpoint we go to. So /users, obviously we don't want this hello users to show up when we're just on /users. So what we can do is, the first thing we can do is check to see the method that we're using. So if, and then $_server request underscore method. So we're gonna see if that's equal to post. Sorry, get. If that is in fact equal to get, spell server. Okay. If that is in fact equal to get, then we can start doing some things. So we're gonna say $URL is equal to $_server, and we're gonna request the URI. And then we're going to say $URL is equal to explode, and we're going to explode on the slash and then we're going to do the URL. And then we're going to check to see if the URL is set and if the first item is equal to an empty string. So if is set $URL and $URL 0 is equal to an empty string, because there will always be at least one item in that array. Doesn't matter what it is. That is in fact true. We're just going to do array underscore shift for the URL. Then we're going to do another if statement. So if not empty, $URL. And we're going to array underscore shift URL again if it's not empty. And so what that will do is, if you remember, we have the /users and we want to be on /list in order to get that user list, which right now it's not going to show because we're still working on the actual functionality. But we want that user list to show here on /list. So the first item of the array checks to see if it's an empty string, and if it is, it removes it. Then it gets rid of this users part of the array, which will leave us with this third item, lists, or whatever is the third item in that array there. Here, okay. So if that is, now once that successfully runs, we're going to say if not empty, and we're going to say $URL, and $URL 0 does not equal an empty string. And we're going to say $URL is equal to $URL 0. And we're doing this so that way we can actually have this URL value, because if we just use the URL value whenever we do our next if statement, it's going to throw an error. So what we'll do is else. We'll say $URL is equal to an empty string. And in fact, if it is equal to, we'll set this equal to a slash actually. And then we'll say if, and then we'll say, actually what we'll do is we'll do slash up here and concatenate that onto URL. So we'll say if $URL is equal to $path, and we'll make this equal exactly. So if the URL is equal to the path, then we're just going to say $this route get, paste that function that we did, or that we created earlier for that setter. So it's equal to the callback. Now that we have that set, we can go to our here, and we have this hello users. But if we do slash users, there's nothing there. Now, if we go back to users, and let's say we do an API get, what happens if we do a slash? And we'll say hello users from slash. Just that way we can differentiate. As you can see, we get this hello users from slash. And that's exactly what we want. So let's take this one step farther. If we go down here, what if we do an else statement? Else, what if we do $sign this, and then handle found? Well, we now get this 404 page not found. But what happens if we do slash list? Well, we get the hello users and this 404 page not found. And why is that? Well, simply put, that's because we're running two functions here. And so it actually sets this function to not be true because this first one, well, it says, hey, we're on the list page, but we're not on the slash. And the second one says, hey, we're on the slash, but we're not on the list. And that's why that does that. Now, as of right now, I don't have a way to fix that, but I'm going to eventually figure that out. So for now, we're not going to use this handle not found. Instead, we're just going to use this right here. And so, and let's just double check to make sure that we're not getting that hello users from slash. Well, we shouldn't be, but let's just double check that real quick. Just say from slash. Just to double check. Okay, so now that we know that that's working, what we can do is we can go back to our router and copy and paste all of this. So this is going to be a post request, so we'll change this to post, and then change this to post. So copy and paste this. And we'll do, and we're going to leave this as post, but change this to put. Now, because we know for a fact that this put request here will be coming in as post, we don't have to change this post on the request method. And then we'll do the same thing for delete and change this to no. And if we come up here, we can set this equal to an empty array by default. Same for up here, and that's already. Okay, so now we can have multiple request methods and multiple requests. So let's say that we do $API and we do post on slash, and we pass in this function, and we just do hello, and we'll do from slash. Let's say slash is set to post. So if we save that, we refresh, all we get is from slash. We don't get this. Now, if I were to open up Postman, which you don't have to have Postman installed, this is sort of more of an advanced thing. Postman basically allows you to test APIs. Okay. So if I bring Postman over here, we have this api.cms.test/users, and then we have post. If I send a request to that, we get slash is set to post, but we don't get that get. If I change this to get, we then get from slash, and that's exactly what we're expecting. So now we have this post and get request. Now we can do this for delete and put but there are going to be some things that we actually have to do for this get put. So if we go back to our router, so this we know that for a fact that the put request is going to be a post request. If we, in fact, let me show you on Google because that will be easier for me to explain. Okay, so if we do this now, curl sends custom requests for delete, which we'll be using curl whenever we actually do our. We'll just open this. We'll be using curl whenever we do our API class. But curl allows you to do custom methods for delete, things like that. So we have two ways that we can do this. First way is to first check if, in fact, sending if the route itself is set to a delete, which all we have to do is we can check to see whether or not the function itself is sending the delete or post request, or we can change this to delete put. Now, unfortunately, it won't allow me to do this put request from here because it's going to. If we do that, nothing comes up. It does give us an okay because that endpoint exists. But if we go to our users and we do something like change this post to delete, set to delete, it's not actually going to show up on here, see? And the reason why is because when it sends this put, oh, that's actually delete anyways. Okay, so it does show up if you set the correct method. So if we do a put, we do, I'm just going to copy and change this to put, and then we can do set to put, and then now that this is set to a put, you'll see slash is set to put, and then if we do delete, slash is set to delete. And so these different requests will allow us to do different methods, which means that we can put a whole bunch of different methods, and we can have up to 4 methods on the same endpoint. We can have the get, and then top of that, we can actually pass in arguments. So let's go back to, I'm just going to close out of both of these. Let's go back to this users and let's do a slash user user and say ID. We'll just give a random ID like so. Oops, save that. What we can do is we can do $API get slash user function. Well, what we can do is we can say $URL is equal to push URI, and we already know that there's going to be at least 2. So we can do that if the $URL is equal to, we'll do URL0 is equal to an empty string. And we'll explode, say $URL is equal to explode. Just that way we have that. And what we can do is array shift URL. And what we can do is we can take this farther and do for each, just in case there are multiple for each URL. Just in case there are multiple spaces in there, we can just do that. anytime there's a space. And then, okay. And then from this, after this for each loop runs, we can then shift URL twice because we know that it's going to have that users and then that slash user. And then if we var dump $sign URL, we're now left with the variable. Token 24. It's probably going too fast. Oh. You. There we go. Okay. So we have this from and then slash. So now that's because we're not on slash user. Slash user slash ASDFN, whatever. Oops. Not mean to do that. Okay. Now we're getting this ASDFE, whatever. That would be the variable. And you can pass as many variables as you want. So we can pass that ID, username, let's say diagnostic username. It will come in and you can pass as many as you want. Those right there would be, that's how you would grab variables from the URL. And so that's how our API router will work. Thank you for watching. I know that these past few videos have been quite long, and there are probably going to be way longer videos. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.